Are you prepared to defend your home, your family, and your life if the unthinkable happens? While it may seem far-fetched to some, an attack here at home is not only possible, but it's becoming more likely by the day. When we think about an invasion, we tend to think about how things happen historically. One nation invades another nation and takes it over. These days, we need to expand how we think these things might unfold. With the advances in technology and the internet, it's not only swords and shields we need to defend ourselves against, but it's ones and zeros. So it might not be something akin to storming the beaches of Normandy. Some of these enemies could be here already, whether that be physically or digitally. And some of these people could even be the ones pulling the levers, if you know what I mean, trying to cause chaos and destabilize things from the inside out. I recently watched a movie, and it wasn't really the greatest movie, but it brought up some interesting points. What if it wasn't a nation storming the beaches of Los Angeles or New York? What if it was something that came from within? What if it was a concerted effort to weaken the United States, leading to internal conflict and even civil war? What if it was an attack from the inside out that took out critical infrastructure like the internet, the power grid, the water supply, all these strategic locations? Are you prepared for a situation like that? Regardless of whether you're talking about a full-fledged land invasion, a terrorist attack, or a coordinated first strike from the inside out.
We made a lot of enemies around the world. Maybe all this means is a few of them teamed up.
We need to be as prepared as we possibly can for events like these. So today I want to talk about 6 essential things that we need to consider when thinking about an invasion on U.S. soil. Now, keep in mind, like I said earlier, this doesn't mean it's a, missiles dropping or a full-fledged invasion on U.S. soil. It could mean a number of different things, and we need to be ready depending on how this situation unfolds. Now, the first one I have on the list is home defense. And the reason that this is first is because without the ability to defend what is yours, without the ability to protect what you have, everything else is basically irrelevant. If you have a year's worth of food stored, a bunch of water stored, a bunch of guns and ammunition, and all those different things, it's sort of irrelevant if you can't protect those, because all of that food, all of those guns, and all that water are going to belong to somebody else. So being able to defend and protect as much as possible your property is crucial in a situation like this or any situation. So what you want to think about is physical barriers, fortification, your perimeter security, all of those things that can be sort of deterrents. You're never going to be able to stop somebody or everybody 100% from getting into your home. If somebody wants something bad enough, they're going to get it. But we can deter them, and we can increase our chances with physical barriers, fortifications, perimeter security, all of those things. Now, perimeter security could be something as simple as a chain link fence, although the larger security fences are going to work much better. But anything you can do that doesn't leave your property wide open is going to add to your defenses. Anything that you can make your home look like it's going to be a pain and it's going to be a challenge, that is going to help you and give you maybe even just a little bit of lead time to get your ducks in a row. Also, with perimeter security, you've got the tech side of things, the surveillance, the motion lights, all of these things that will alert you in the event that somebody is trying to get onto your property. Now, in a situation where the critical infrastructure has been taken out and maybe the grid's down, you may not have the ability to use some of these surveillance cameras that are hardwired in. So you would need to think of other options, maybe solar options, things that aren't tied to the grid. Here in our house, we have a few floodlights around the property. These days, it's usually a deer or an animal running through the yard. But the reason I put them up is to alert us in a situation like we're talking about today. Okay, so the next one I've got on this list is support groups. Ideally, you would want a MAG group, which is a mutual assistance group, but it isn't an option for most people. But a support group is absolutely necessary in an event like this or any disaster situation, because going it alone is not the best plan of action. And when you think about an enemy invasion or you think about enemy forces that may be coming through the neighborhood, if you are by yourself, you are severely limited in what you can do. With a support group, even if that is just a few neighbors that are looking out for each other, that can benefit you in a lot of different ways. First off, it's sharing the knowledge and skills. You may be really good at one thing, but you can't be really good at everything. And with a support group, you get those people that have different skill sets and different resources and have different ideas about how to approach different situations. So having a group of people that you can depend on will help you when you're planning for different situations like these. Also, and I think one of the most important aspects of a community or group is the security. Having a group of people that you can trust in a disaster situation is going to help you. You're going to have more eyeballs. You're going to have more input on what the security plan would be. So a mutual assistance group or just a community of neighbors can help you manage a situation, so you're not thinking about just your home security, you're thinking about neighborhood security. You're thinking, instead of your home perimeter, you're thinking about the neighborhood perimeter, and you're expanding yourself out because with a group of people, you have the ability to do that. So the next one on my list is firearms and ammunition. And this, what you decide and what you choose really depends on a number of different factors. Are you choosing something? Are you thinking about this from a home defense perspective? Are you thinking about this from a larger perspective? So choosing what type of firearm and the ammunition is really a personal choice, but there are some things to factor into this. Shotguns are great for home defense and don't require as much training and precision as, say, a firearm would, a sidearm, or a rifle would. But again, you are sacrificing distance and accuracy with a shotgun. But in close quarters, a shotgun is a pretty good weapon. Handguns also are suitable for close quarter combat. They're portable. They're easy to conceal. So handguns, semi-automatic pistols, revolvers, those are also firearms that you might want to think about. Now, I think of a sidearm as something in conjunction with. I wouldn't depend solely on that. So whether that's a shotgun or a rifle, which rifles are great for when you're in concealment or you're in cover. You've got a number of different customizations you can do with the rifle as far as scopes, infrared, a lot of different things that you can do with a rifle. Now, talking about a bug out situation, you are sort of limited with that rifle, and you also have short-barreled rifles. But with short-barreled rifles and all of these, you need to think about the legal situations in the state that you live. These days, it almost changes on a daily basis. So that's an important factor to consider when you're talking about firearms. In an event like the one we're talking about today, it's not probably that big of a deal. But before and until that happens, you need to make sure you're following the laws in your state. So the next one I have here is cash on hand. And cash is one of those things where it can be absolutely useless to you, or it can absolutely be a lifesaver. And I think in a situation like this, where you're talking about the critical infrastructure being down, enemy forces being on U.S. soil, I think that cash will be, at least initially, be something that you probably want to have some on hand. How much you have really depends on you and your situation. But if the grid is down, that means the banks are down. That means the ATMs are down. That means the cash registers at the store where you just slide your card are down. And you're going to need cash for in those different situations. So I think it's really important to have whatever amount of cash you think is feasible. Keep in mind, the more cash you store, the more of a target you are for people that know you have that. So next on the list, and it seems like I talk about this in every single video I do, but that's water and water storage. You can go a few weeks without food. There are alternatives and options for just about everything in preparedness other than water. Now, when you're talking about a situation like this, you're probably thinking a month, 6 months, maybe even longer. So you're not talking about just the basic, emergency preparedness stash of water, a few gallons, maybe 25, 30 gallons. What you're talking about is enough water to last you 30, 60, 90 days at the very least. So you're talking about hundreds of gallons of water. Now, for a lot of people, that's just not possible to store that much water. So we also need to be thinking about different ways to purify water, to clean water, where to find water in different places around your neighborhood, and how we would clean that. You've got parks, ponds, streams, rivers. It really depends on your geographic location, what you can find. But look around your neighborhood and scout everything out and see what might be available to you. And then with that, think about how you might be able to clean that water, or if you're able to clean that water in the first place. There are some rivers and streams that run through urban areas where the water you may not be able to get chemicals and things like that out of the water, so that water source might not be viable for you. But there are other streams where maybe all you're thinking about is getting giardia or cryptosporidium or pesticides, things like that, that you can get out of the water, and those would be a viable water source for you. The next one here, we've got food storage, and this is one that gets talked about quite a bit in the preparedness community. Almost every website you go to is going to talk about food storage. But it really is a critical part of your preparedness plan, because if the grid is down, if the critical infrastructure is affected, those grocery stores, those supply lines, even fuel getting to the gas station, all of those things are going to be affected, and that will affect your ability to go out. Even if you do have cash on hand, it will affect your ability to go out and get those things that your family needs. And the people that don't have these things, that haven't prepared their food storage and water storage, are going to be going out and looking places. And if they go to the store and the shelves are empty at the store, the next viable option is to go into somebody's home and take the food that they have, which all circles back to being able to protect the supplies that you have. Now, when it comes to food storage, it's the long-term, the shelf-stable foods. Canned foods are a great option. You've got the dried foods, food that will last a year or two, somewhere in that time frame, and even longer. You've got the 5-gallon bucket method, where you can put all sorts of different flour, different rice, different beans, different things in 5-gallon buckets that will store anywhere from 10 years to 25 years. You've got the pantry foods that are usually shelf stable for a year or so. So those, as long as you're rotating through those will be a viable option as well. So just think about all of the different types of food that have a really long shelf life that can store easily. Figure out where you can store those in your house and build up a stockpile as much as you can. My recommendation is at the very minimum, have 30 days worth. When you're thinking about a situation like this, how things could unfold, you could be talking months down the line. You could be talking things still going on after a year or so. So build up as much as you can given your living situation. This is not a disaster scenario where the grid goes down and you're going to be sitting on your butt for a few days with twiddling your thumbs with nothing to do. A situation like this may require you to be fairly active, even if it's just setting up defenses around your home, digging trenches, things like that. There could be a lot of things going on, and you need to be able to have the energy for that. So the food storage and what's in your food storage is important. If you've got 14 shelves of ramen noodle, probably not going to cut it going into month 3 of a disaster situation. All right, so the last one I have here on this list is medical supplies, and this doesn't mean it's the least important, it's just the last on this list. And medical supplies, regardless of what disaster situation you're talking about, are super important, because you never know when accidents happen, and a small situation could be made a whole lot worse by not taking care of that. So medical supplies include the bandages and the tape and all of those different things, having the different kits, the trauma supplies that you might need, but also it includes the medications that you might need, the antibiotics. And there are a few different places where you can get prescription medications. You can get extended prescriptions on the prescriptions that you already have. Jace Medical is one of those. You can get antibiotics. There are there are more options these days than there have been in the past to get those things. Also, over-the-counter medications sometimes get overlooked when you're talking about Imodium or just the things that we're eating all this strange food, we're doing all these things we're not usually doing, and our body is going to have to adjust to that. Diarrhea could be a major problem in some sort of SHTF situation, dehydration, things like that. So you want to make sure that you have the over-the-counter medications that you're going to need to handle those situations. The medications, the medical supplies, all of those things I think are really important because in a situation like this, yes, the hospitals might be available. They may be overrun. They may be dangerous, and they may be non-existent at all. So the more you can take care of yourself, the more you can take care of at home, the better off you are going to be in a situation like this. And this is also something we need to learn, just like the firearms. Learn these skills, take the classes, learn how to do all of these different wound dressings and bandaging, trauma skills and things like that. So learn all of these things before it comes to a situation like this, and that will also make you a more valuable member of any sort of community or anything like that. All right, so I know there's probably 100 other things that go on this list as well, but I didn't want to make this video an hour and a half long. Like I said, if you've got any comments, I appreciate it if you just leave them below, let me know. But with that, take care and prepare, everyone, and we will talk to you all later.